I'm going to be talking about prototyping. Um, for people who know me, I am a researcher through and through. I studied anthropology, I studied health sciences. My bread and butter really is ethnography. So I'm really more comfortable in that context. But since being at Think Place almost 10 months now, I've really come to learn how the prototyping process is slowly becoming my favorite part of the HTD process. And I'm here to share some tips to hopefully maybe expand your prototyping toolkit. Based on what I've learned, observations I've made, learning from people on my team who are absolutely amazing. As Lise mentioned in another chat, pretty badass team over at Think Place Senegal. So I'm going to start with breaking down your materials. So we're all somewhat familiar about the prototyping process, right? So it's part of the HTD process. I like to think of it as almost like the doing. Research is doing, but prototyping is doing on a different level. And for me, I think the first time I was part of a prototyping process, it seemed super overwhelming because I didn't know where to start and where to end. And so thinking about how you're capitalizing on your insights and immersive research, whether you have done it yourself or you're coming onto a project that's already done it, it's really helpful to kind of break down what your goals are, what your different elements are in the for the prototyping sprint or sprints. So something we've adopted here at Think Place Senegal through prototyping either on the ground, so us ourselves going into the field and prototyping with country teams and local teams, or supporting remotely, which we've done as well, is really come up with this structure so we are able to break down our prototyping materials in a very tangible way. So you have the prototyping guide, which lists all the elements that you'll need to test in the actual prototype. So whether you're testing comprehension, whether you're testing usability, whether you're testing um, the specific target group and you're willing to validate that. All of those go into this prototyping guide, which could be a PDF, which could be a presentation that takes it step by step, maybe even getting into what different elements you'll be testing per sprint. And then you have the materials. Are there posters you're going to be using? Are there different texts that you need to share and validate? Say you're prototyping with children. Is there a song you're going to be prototyping? So that goes into materials. Then you have follow-up question. What exit interview questions are you going to be using? Based on a different target. When are you going to be using them? That can fall under there. And then synthesis sheets, which you can do daily to make sure that you're capturing all your observations, your notes, and this you're doing together with the local teams that you're working with. So your mobilizers, any country office teams that you're working with on the client. So this is just, I wanted to share a very practical tip that I've been able to adopt and think works really well, whether you're going in the field yourself or whether you're supporting teams remotely. And tip number 2 is to take a step back and learn. I think, especially when prototyping in countries that I've never been to, on projects that I know very little about, it's really humbling or really important to just take a step back and learn. And we were really able to do this on a project with our mobilizers. So here is the lovely Paula and Khadija and Balkisa, who we worked on a project with in Ouaga. And I would really say it was really humbling. I'm a researcher. I love to do research. We couldn't do a lot of research on this project. So what did I do? I checked myself before I wrecked myself. And I took a step back and really tried to learn from what they had learned by living in the communities, by speaking and engaging with people, and how that really helped fuel our understanding of the project, of the prototypes we were testing, of the different channels we'd be working in. And also, it was super reciprocal, right? They were really interested in us teaching them, a little bit more about the HTD process, about prototyping, about exit interviews, about value propositions. And in return, we were able to learn from them because they have a wealth of knowledge and they are the experts and a lot of things. And so I find that in terms of capacity building, it was almost the most immediate return on impact that I could have seen in this project based on comments, and based on creating this really working reciprocal relationship with mobilizers that I would highly recommend people at least scratch the surface of if you have the opportunity to do that. There's a lot that we could learn, just by taking a step back and just do the thing. And I say this as someone, I keep going back to the fact that I am a researcher, and sometimes I was spinning my wheels about how we didn't have enough time to do research. And at the end of the day, you kind of just have to take a leap of faith, use what information you have, the insights you have, and start. I think starting for me was always really challenging. I work with really great people who bring the creativity, who bring the design, who bring kind of like that urgency that we need because sometimes you don't have a lot of time in the field to just do it, I think. And you have to start. And then I realized slowly that there are things that there are values that me, even as a researcher and a designer, can bring into the process. So the really big thing is to trust people on your team. When you're building project teams, there's always that element of how you can build on skills, how you can complement each other, how you can work together, and really trusting that the project manager, other people in your studio have your back, and really trusting the process of prototyping. It's iterative for a reason. It doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning, which I thought was necessary. But as you slowly go through the process, you're able to learn that. So really trust your team. And if you can, eat a lot of bread, which helps a lot. And lastly, have fun and cultivate your curiosity. I would say this brings it back to this idea of also channeling your inner child, your imagination, really going at it. Like that's the wrong text, apologies, but yeah, creating a calendar using materials that you have available to you, um, and building something out of nothing. Well, it's not nothing because you have some ideas in your head, but really not being afraid to kind of take an idea that you have, and throwing it on the wall, so to speak, and really using that as the basis to at least start with the prototyping, validating it with your team, leveraging your team, using your mobilizers, and all of that is for me really cultivating curiosity in a way that I've missed a lot actually, since I was a child, very creative. And now I'm able to do that. And I feel like with prototyping, I can actually hone in on the creativity slowly, slowly.